Alright, let's go over some of the features in InDesign that will help you with your magazine spreads. We went over these in class last week, but I think it'll be helpful to have a short, I hope, video that just goes over some of these again. So when you're working with a magazine, you're obviously going to be working with text and images, a lot more so than we worked with images in our in-class article. And I have that pulled up. I've modified it a little bit. I've added some front matter and things like that. A title page and a table of contents page and things like that. When we're working with images in InDesign, we've talked before about how it's important that we don't copy and paste images, but that we place them. So I have a couple of images saved to my desktop, one called Sparrowhawk and one called Sparrowhawk Cutout. We'll look at those when we talk about placing images. So I'm going to go ahead and place my first image and just show you a couple of things. To place an image, I hit Command D, or I can go to File and Place, and I look for it. So I'm going to start with this image of the Sparrowhawk. And when I bring it in, I can either click and have this image brought in at its full size. This is a high-res, good quality image, so it imports really large. Or I can click and drag and create a frame that's the exact size I want this image of the Sparrowhawk to be. Once it's in my document, there are a couple things that I need to do to it. The first thing is, for your magazine assignment, you'll be required to have captions for all of your images. Now you could just come over to your type tool and draw a text frame, below it and begin to type your caption and then kind of reposition that text frame right below the picture that you have. And that works great. Or you can instead use InDesign's automatic caption generator. Now this is especially handy if you have your files named a particular way. Right now this file is just named sparrowhawk.jpg. So if I right click on the image, go down to caption, I can go to my caption setup and I can look at my different options. So it's going to pull the name from the metadata, in other words the file name. I can ask it to pull any of this information if I prefer. To me, name makes most sense. If there's some text I want before, like if it's a table, for example, and I want it to say table1 colon and then whatever the name of the file is, I can do that. I can add some text after as well. This is just to show the positioning of my caption. So I do want it below my image, and I want it to appear a little bit further below my image, a little bit farther below my image than just 0p1. So I'm going to bump that to, let's say, 0p8. If I have a paragraph style set up for my caption, I can apply that here. I'll go ahead and just create one really quick. And let's make this Chaparral Pro, that actually looks, well, let's do it in our display text just so it appears quite a bit different. And we'll stick with 9. Okay. Now my paragraph style will be automatically assigned. And if I'm working with layers in my InDesign file, I can put these captions on a different layer, which is helpful if I ever want to edit or see all the captions at once if I'm going to make some massive changes to every single one of them. I can also group the caption with the image, but we'll look at why that may or may not be helpful in a minute. So if I hit OK, I'll go back, right click, and go to caption, and I can generate a live caption or a static caption. The live caption, you can see, I'm going to pull these over here so that we can actually see what's happening. The live caption connects the caption to the image. So if I just move this caption away from the image so that the text frame the caption is in is no longer touching this image frame, it doesn't know what to call it. So as soon as it touches it though, then it changes and pulls the name of this image into the caption. So that's nice. I can also right click, select the image, right click, go to captions, and generate a static caption, which gives me the same name, but it just doesn't change as I move it away from the image. So if you feel like one is better than the other, then that's great. I brought the images over here because when it's on top of this text, it's kind of hard to see. That's because we don't have a text wrap applied to this image yet. So to apply a text wrap, you go up to your window frame and open your text wrap, or your window menu, open your text wrap panel. You have a bunch of different options for text wraps. You'll find that one option may work better than the other depending on your image, and we'll look at a couple examples in just a second. The second option in will wrap around a bounding box. Anytime you're working with something that's rectangle or a full image like this, that may be a good option. You'll either want to use wraparound bounding box or the jump object. We'll look at why you'd want to use jump object in a minute. If I click wraparound bounding box, then that automatically applies text wrap around this entire image. I can adjust the amount of text wrap with the fields below my text wrap options. And again, if I have my chain linked, adjusting one of these frames will adjust all of them. So let's give this a text wrap of about, let's just say 0p8. Now notice that it looks fine on the top and bottom. However, I do want to just move this down a little bit so I have at least two lines together. But off to the side, because of the size of my image, this is creating some really terrible spacing. In this case, what I may want to do, rather than use this wraparound bounding box text wrap, I'd want to use this jump object text wrap, and what that'll do is just push all the text either to the top or the bottom. So that looks quite a bit better. If I wanted to, I could go back in and center this image within the text. A lot of times that looks nice when you've chosen to use this jump object text wrap option. So with both of my frames selected, I'm going to come back to my window menu, and I'm going to find my align panel. So I'll go to object and layout and align. And here, if I want to center this image within my page here, well, that's not technically what I want to do, but I'll show you just to demonstrate. I can go to this option here, align to, and I can make sure align to page is selected, and then I just click this align horizontal center as frame. Now that's great, but notice because my margins are not set up equally on both sides, this image is not centered within my text, and I want it centered within my text. That's more important than centering it within my page. So what I'm going to do is select these images, or my image and my caption. I'll group them this time with Command G, then I'll shift click my text frame, and I'll click my text frame again, not holding down any keys. What that does is it makes this dark highlight around it, and it actually sets it as what's called a key object. When I do that, my Align To field automatically changes to key object, and if I click the Align Horizontal Centers now, that image moves slightly, and now it's aligned perfectly within my text. You can align obviously with the left, the center, the right. You can align the top edges, the vertical center, and the bottom edges. So this is really super helpful, and I do expect you to use it so that you make sure that your objects are perfectly aligned. Now, what I want to do here is just take out that JPEG, so you may find that you do have to do some kind of adjusting. Oops, let's see. And I want to come back in there and just delete that Pilchroma. All right. So that's great. Now if you're working with a lot of images, you may find that this gets pretty tedious in terms of applying the same amount of text wrap. What if you wanted to have a little stroke around your image? You could do that. I'm going to ungroup these, just select the image, go to my stroke panel, and let's just put a stroke of 1 around it. Now notice when I did that, it pushed my caption away, so I have to move my caption down a bit. Now if I hit the W key, you can see that there's a nice little stroke around my frame. If I wanted that to be the case for all of my images, and I'm working with a lot of images, that can get pretty tedious to do. So what you want to do is create an object style for your images and for your captions. If I create a new object style, I can apply that same stroke that I like, so it's a weight of 1, and you can choose whatever type of stroke you like, also whatever color, etc. We'll just stick with a 1-point weight and just a regular black stroke. You can also apply your text wrap here. So this is my image text wrap, and I decided to go with jump object for my images and 0p8 for my offset. Now if let's say I placed another image here, I'll just choose the same one, but I'll do it a little smaller. If I come to my image object style, it applies all of those attributes automatically, so I don't have to worry about it. Let's see. I do need to go in, though, and align all of my images. So I would just want to click my image, shift-click my text frame, click my text frame again without shift-clicking or holding any keys down, so it aligns to that text frame there. I can click on my image, create a caption, and I'm good to go. Now in this case though, notice that I have some text wrap around this caption, but I don't in this caption. I do want to create another object style for my caption frames. I don't want to stroke around my caption frames because that would look silly. The only thing I'm really worried about is text wrap, and the only wrap I'm worried about really is along the bottom in this case. Again, because my text is jumping from the top to the bottom, I don't ever have to worry about offsetting it to the left or to the right. So in this case, I'll just bump up the bottom. Whoops. Let's see, let me just clear these out. So I'll just bump up the bottom to 8, hit OK, and now if I select my text frame, I can go to my caption object style, and now I should be able to group those to make sure that they always stay together. So that's cool. Object styles, aligning, generating automatic captions. Now another one of these text wrap options that you might find useful, let me open this again here, it's actually pretty cool. It's this wraparound object shape. You won't always be working with images that are within a perfect rectangle. Sometimes you'll come into Photoshop, as I've done here, and make a selection around an image that you want, to follow in your InDesign file. So I'm going to delete these here. And I've gone ahead and done that like I showed you in this Photoshop file. I've saved it to my desktop and I've called it Sparrowhawk Cutout. Now if I if I place this into my document, you can see that I can see through this image. And we will look at how to do this when we're covering Photoshop. It's pretty simple, just a crash course. Basically you want to copy the background layer here. You can make the selection of what you want to keep. You inverse that selection and then delete it. And then you turn off the background layer and save it out. So it's pretty simple to do, but the end result that you come up with is something like this. Now let's say I have this image here and I want my text to wrap all the way around it. I can select this wraparound object shape, text wrap, but there's one more step I need to do. Under the type, it's automatically going to say same as clipping in most cases. What I want to do is come up and select alpha channel. Now notice that that sets this text wrap around this image, but it's very close to the image. So I need to come up and adjust my offset to have that text come a little bit farther away. And now I have what I think is a pretty cool effect with my text wrap. Obviously we want to avoid different things like this, so you'd have to position your image and make sure it makes sense the way that you have your text wrapped around it. But you can do pretty fun things like this. So that's some helpful information, I hope, for you. Just again reviewing, generating captions, grouping objects, applying object styles, using your align panel. There's one more thing I want to show you, and that is just working with columns. When you are working with a magazine, let me show you a past example here. This is a class a few semesters ago. When you're working with a magazine, you will probably want to work with multiple columns. In fact, that's one of the requirements for you. Let's see, I believe this team does it. Yes, okay, so when this team created their magazine, you can see that they have a 2-column first page, but that column, when I click on it, is just one text frame. If I click on one of these columns, just one text frame is selected. That's because up here they've created a 2-column spread. If I bump this up, it can be a 3-column, 4-column, 5-column, etc. Obviously with this text frame this size, a 2-column spread is going to be all that can really be used. So they've made it really easy on themselves just using this handy little feature when you click on a text frame to increase or decrease the number of columns. Now I believe they haven't done that in every case. On this last page they have a couple of text frames, what would be considered a 2-column layout, but because the columns are different widths, they use just different text frames. So you won't always need to use this feature, the number of columns per text frame. You can set different text frames, create different text frames for your text. But most of the time, if you can, it's very handy to just use this number of columns within your text frame to create a multi-column layout.